is likely to have an interaction with the media, particularly morning show hosts and news editors, to carry the message of PIAC and together champion a way forward, to have PIAC's message, to reach out to the generality of the Ghanaian populace. For 2022, our works brought out a number of findings, and we want to share these findings with the public and also the recommendations that we have on these findings. Among the findings are the fact that over the past 3 years, our oil production is seeing a decline, an average of 10% per year, and this is an issue of concern, to us as a committee, and generally should be of concern to everybody in the nation. So far, only 3 wells are producing oil, and for the past 12 years, we have been producing. 2019, from our report, was the year that, in terms of volume, we produced the highest quantity of crude. That was about 71 million barrels. This reduced to 66 in 2020 to 55 in 2021, and now to 51 in 2022. So this is an area of concern, and we are asking government and all the stakeholders to double up their efforts and ensure that we have a sustainable development of our oil fields. Encourage other investors to come in, or if it means we have to ourselves as a nation invest more to do more discoveries and drill more wells to reverse the decline. Because we have found that the oil revenue is a good source of income to the state, money that is always readily available and we can rely on. But we can only do that if we have constant flow of oil. And that is why we are urging the stakeholders, and particularly the government and GNPC, who is our national oil company, to double up their efforts, especially in the Voltairean Basin, where GNPC itself is doing exploration, so that we will sooner than later strike oil there. Those working in the Kita Basin as well as the Tano deep water basins all need to work harder so we can reverse the trend. The other issue we had also on the fact that yes, GNPC has established a subsidiary called Jubilee Oil Holding Limited. As far as PIAC is concerned, our firm belief is that every revenue flowing from oil, whether directly or indirectly, should be deposited into the Petroleum Holding Fund account, which will be distributed according to what the PRMA, prescribes. And so, since GNPC is treating this as their own and is refusing to deposit this money into PHF, we think that is something of concern that we will keep drawing their attention to, even though they disagree with us. But we also firmly believe that our position is a position of law and it should be treated as such. There are other areas where GNPC are
Project more. In the oil and gas sector at the moment, a number of challenges actually exist, including the fact that we are experiencing a declining production, as indicated in the PIAC report. The need to increase investment in areas that we can explore and produce more. And the way to overcome that is to ensure that the fiscal regime is attractive to particularly companies operating within the country. The other challenge has to do with revenues that are not accruing to government. For instance, the PRMA outlines a number of revenue streams, including capital gains taxes, royalties from the gas sector, additional oil entitlements, which is money that's expected to accrue from companies when they make supernormal profits. And all these sources, not a dollar has ever hit the Petroleum Holding Fund. Particularly capital gains taxes, we've seen a number of takeovers and acquisitions decisions in the petroleum sector, starting from the EO Group as early as 2012, and most recently, the sale of another share, which was supposed to accrue about $170 million. None of that money has hit the PHF as we speak. And if government needs to ramp up revenue, it needs to look at some of these sources that it can easily get revenue from. In addition to these, there are also the imperatives of energy transition and the risks of instability in the price regime on the petroleum sector and even declining investments from the international oil companies. Government needs to find a way, and government has actually put in place a plan, except that that plan is not very robust. A lot of focus is on the electricity sector, but we need to think critically about how an entity like GNPC can be sustainable. In terms of the use of gas, we also need to ensure that we have enough domestic gas which is affordable and can fuel the transition, because government says gas is the transition fuel. There are also challenges within the gas sector in terms of infrastructure. Already, the Atuabo gas processing plant has reached its limit, and there's a need for a second plant. That requires a lot of investment. Where is the money going to come from? And that is the reason why entities like Ghana Gas and GNPC need to be efficient to be able to generate the needed funds required for investment in these infrastructure projects. But also, as we invest in these infrastructure, we must remember that the world is moving, and the demand for clean energy is very high because of the climate concerns, and government needs to think critically about investments in the renewable sector to ensure that Ghana is not left behind. We have domestic resources that can be used to fuel the renewable energy development, and we need to harness those resources to ensure that Ghana progresses with the world. So for me, these are some of the key challenges that are in the sector, and we need to pay attention to.